what is the essence of usury? Why is that? It's basically like stapled, to Jewish culture, particularly that of, obviously the Rothschilds come to mind, but what is the essence of usury, and why is that considered? Obviously, it's considered very negative for the connotations that's related to it. But what more or less the evolution of it, how it came to be, and why that's such a dividing issue for so many people today.
Well, first, let's start with the last question. Why is it such a dividing issue? I'm very curious. Do you have a mortgage on your house? You pay interest, don't you?
Yeah.
Is that usury?
Well, it depends on, again, there isn't some universal idea in terms of what would be considered fair interest rate for a given person. But you take somebody like an obvious, an obvious point of contention would be somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who perhaps of all the people that she had done what I consider illicit business with for the time that she's been in Congress for over 20 years, are payday lenders, which when you want to talk about usury of the worst kind, you're talking about, it's criminal behavior. You're talking interest rates that are in
Peter.
double digits.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not a religious Jew. She knows nothing about usury. I doubt she even knows how to say it in Hebrew. There are a couple of different words. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has nothing to do with the Jewish law. She doesn't keep Shabbos. She doesn't eat kosher food. As far as I know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has nothing to do with usury. What in the world? Tell me what Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is more non-Jewish than, I don't know, the Pope, at least the Pope, he believes in the Bible. He believes in a Messiah, not mine. What connection does Debbie Wasserman Schultz have with Judaism? Tell me, you talking about her race? Are you saying that this ideology of usury has to do with a race? If it's a religion, she's not religious. So what exactly are you attaching the question to? Because of her race?
No.
Exactly?
I'm addressing the fact that she's done business with the worst form of usury for many years.
But my question is, why are you associating her with being Jewish? Why is that a Jewish thing?
She claims it. She claims to be
but
Jewish.
what does that mean? Usury, she has no connection with the Bible, no connection with Judaism. The only thing is you can say she's ethnically Jewish if you want. She claims it. She doesn't claim to be religiously Jewish.
No.
So she claims to be ethnically Jewish. So you're talking about an ethnicity. What you're asking, Peter, then is, why does this ethnicity do usury? Is that what you're asking? I don't think you want to ask that. What exactly are we asking here? A race? Are we talking about a race of people that do this usury? Are we talking about a religion? What are we talking about?
No, the history of usury, as I understand it, is, and I'm a learned person myself, that it's something that started many a century ago, and what ended up happening is that it was considered a sin by the Catholic Church. You cannot perform usury. However, as you alluded to, you want to be able to take on debt because you may have something that you want to invest in, that you want to grow over time. That's where the concept of usury, it more or less, that's where it grew from. That's where it grew from. Again, that's where the likes of the Rothschilds, who are, again, the problem is that it becomes this grand conspiracy that, again, it's a Jewish problem instead of a selection of individuals who just happen to be Jewish, who happen to participate in this type of behavior that in the eyes of many people is considered sinful. So I ask you, why is usury such a major point of contention, in your opinion, for so many people?
It's such a major point of contention because people look at the Jews as a race, and they look at somebody like Debbie Schultz Wasserman, and they say, well, if she's doing it, must be a Jewish thing. Debbie Schultz Wasserman does nothing Jewish, period, except Israel. She does not. How in the world is that a Jewish action? Could you tell me something else that Debbie Wasserman Schultz does that's Jewish?
Well, I'm going to show you real quick, because as Jen has been fortunate enough to leave the part of South Florida that this event just took place, and I'm sure you're aware of all of these pro-Israel NGOs, these nonprofit organizations. But Miriam Adelson and Chaim Sabin had organized this event in Hollywood, Florida, this past weekend. And this is what Debbie Wasserman Schultz had her few minutes to get on stage, and this is what she had to say.
We have a problem generationally, whether they're Republicans or Democrats or independents. The next generation of Americans, the next generation coming up behind us, does not understand the importance of a strong Israel, an Israel that should always remain a Jewish and democratic state. And they don't understand that we as a people have contributed boundless significance and impact in countries across the globe. Anti-Semitism is growing, and there are young people who believe that the Holocaust never happened, an astonishing percentage, that it wasn't 6 million, that it was a number far fewer. We have to make sure that we are creating educational opportunities and bringing young people together across the divide, cultures and religion, to make sure that we don't have a generation, as we lose our Holocaust-era survivors, that we don't have a generation that believes that there is something wrong with the Jewish people and who fosters instead of fights anti-Semitism.
Yeah, unfortunately, she is the person who's causing as much anti-Semitism as anybody in the world today. Forget the United States.
I think we've heard enough of her.
Okay. I'm looking at the screen, and it says Israeli American Council. I don't see any J in that IAC abbreviation. These are a group of people who are there to promote the interests of Israel. They are Zionists. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is as Jewish as pork. She's Jewish as far as I'm concerned, in the sense that she is sinning when she doesn't keep Shabbos. She is sinning when she eats pork. If she would be a Noahide, if she would be not Jewish, it wouldn't be a sin. So she is committing 613 sins instead of 7. She is obligated to fulfill the Mosaic covenant and not the Noahide covenant. Aside from that, she has nothing to do with me. Okay, let's get back to usury. Usury is one of the things, since Jews were not allowed to own land, Jews were not allowed in the professions, they were forced to be moneylenders. And that was part of the stigma of being a Jew. Now, I'm not sure what the laws of usury are, that it's a sin according to the church. But again, are you saying that taking a mortgage out on a house and paying a bank interest is a sin? How about a business loan or a home equity loan? Where would we live without interest paid for investments? Is that a sin? I'm not sure exactly what the church considers a sin. So if I'm a mortgage banker, do you know how many people, I would never be able to afford a house. I can't pay a down pay. I can't pay cash for a house. I would rather pay interest. So is the person who gives me a loan on interest, I'm not talking about a loan shark, and the Jews are not the ones mostly known to be loan sharks. Only individuals who are loan sharks are known to be loan sharks. Tell me, according to the church, if you need a house and you want to buy a house, and you come to me and I say, look, I have all this money. I'll give it to you at, I don't know what, prime minus 1% or prime. And you're thanking me. Did I commit a sin or an act of kindness for you? Are you appreciative? Perhaps you can't get a loan anywhere else, and I give it to you on interest. Are you appreciative? Tell me, if you want to buy a car and you can't afford, I don't know what, however tens of thousands of dollars it costs, and I give you a loan, you expect me to give you? I mean, how would society work if not for investments?
Well, again, I'm in commercial real estate, so I would to say that the big issue here is not a question of, do I think usury is a sin or that money lending is a sin? I think at the end of the day, if people want to do something with their lives and they don't have the capital to do it, but they know somebody who does and they're willing to lend it to them at a marginal percentage, I don't have a problem with that. The problem we end up getting into is that what would be considered normal usury, if you will, let's say 2%. 2% interest on a loan that lasts 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. You have situations today, not just payday lenders, you have credit card interest fees, you have banking interest fees, you have all these fees where the interest rates are not 2%. In some cases, they're 20%, 30%, an insane level of usury that no one can pay back. And of course, the people who typically are the ones who fall into this trap the most, being those that have to take out, let's say, payday loans, which is something that Wasserman Schultz has been behind for decades. These are people in desperate situations that if they were to take on those types of loans, very likely they're never getting out of it. And so one of the hardest lessons that I've learned over the years when it comes to political discussions is that having any type of nuance is hard to come by. It's usually cut and dry. You know, we can't decipher between Zionism and Judaism. We can't decipher between one type of usury and another. And the way I see it is, yes, there has to be a distinction.
Okay,
there is a distinction in the difference.
Agreed. There has to be a distinction. But what does that have to do with Judaism? It is prohibited by Jewish law to take advantage of, and in fact, I got to tell you, according to Jewish law, if somebody's desperate and let's say they need to cross the river and you have a boat and you charge them extra because you know they have no choice, that transaction is considered invalid because it was not done. It was done only through diminished capacity, through coercion. If you coerce somebody into a transaction, the transaction is considered invalid and you have to give them back all their money. The reason why gambling is a sin, according to Judaism, is because the loser doesn't really want to lose the money. Even though he agreed, he's a consenting human being, an adult, to sit down, but he doesn't have the actual desire to give over that money. And without that desire, he's considered kind of like coerced, even though we could argue the other way. But in Judaism, that's a sin. To take a person and to charge him like a loan shark, I don't understand what that has to do with Judaism at all. Usury.
Well, I can bring the conversation full circle.
Let me just finish. MasterCard, Visa, American Express. They are the places where you're going to find those interest rates that you mentioned, correct? If a person doesn't pay, and they charge the vendor, 2, 3, 5, 6%, American Express, whatever it is, for the transaction. So they're loaning you money every time a vendor takes a credit card. They're actually paying interest. That's what they're doing. They're being loaned money and they're paying interest. In fact, if you get points for paying a debt early on a payable, that's interest. You're being loaned money and you're paying for that loan. Okay? I don't understand what Debbie Wasserman Schultz has to do with Judaism. According to Judaism, as you agree, and Judaism agrees, you are not allowed to coerce somebody to take advantage of them. I don't know where you're going to find that anywhere in the Jewish literature that that's legitimate. Absolutely not. If you're talking about usury per se, that means you would prohibit credit cards, you would prohibit your whole real estate business, your mortgages. And I agree that if now there are ways to do it. The difference between a loan and interest versus an investment, according to Judaism, is the investment means you're taking responsibility as well for the loss. So if, let's say, you have a mortgage and you buy a building with it, right? And I know the building blows up, it's lost, you go bankrupt. You're still obligated to pay the bank. But what you wanted, that's interest. What you want to do is you want to make a deal with the bank that they share risk and they'll share investment profits. That way you'd be able to pay them without violating any interest but if that building goes bankrupt, they share the loss. You see, so just to say usury, well, that means in English, that sounds like a dirty word for what we call interest.
I think people are just wanting to know, like, that they're saying that it's just not prohibited versus Jesus prohibiting usury. And
so if Jesus wants to prohibit usury, let him. But does that mean mortgages are prohibited? Does that mean home equity loans are prohibited? Does that
Well,
mean
again, I
credit
think
cards are prohibited?
it still comes back to the same problem, which is there's a difference between it. We we do not live. Our society has evolved to the point in which morality basically ceases to exist in so many ways. So if you are a lender and you do not have a moral compass when it comes to understanding the ways of the world and bear markets, bull markets, or stable markets, it really it becomes this moral choice, which you can say is part and parcel for what the Abrahamic religions are supposed to be about anyway. And I would agree with that in principle, but that's not the world that we live in. We live in a world where sin has become so much more accepted as just the cost of doing business, if you will. And so I can understand the concern where, usury is a sticking point for a lot of people. I can at least understand.
So again, if you're coercing somebody to pay what he cannot afford, it doesn't matter if it's a loan or a transaction. That's immoral and that's wrong. But I tell you, from my perspective, I mean, morals are designed to help people. Something immoral is someone that hurts people. I'm sitting in my house. I could not afford to buy this house without a loan. And I cannot expect somebody to take several $100,000s, which he could invest and make money for himself, and give it to me for 10, 20, 30 years interest free. I don't think the society would survive like that. And I thank him for approving my loan. I thank him. Are you saying that that's immoral? He did something immoral to me. He enabled me. I worked. No, I'm retired now. I work. I get a salary. I take X amount of that salary every month. I pay a mortgage, home equity loan, or a car payments. Without that, our quality of life would be a lot less. Are you telling me that I am responsible to say, well, if Christianity doesn't like that, I now am answerable for it?